Hello, everyone. Welcome to MarketBeat Monday. We are so glad you are here as the market reaching some more all-time highs again. Joining us, as always, is MarketBeat analyst Chris Markoch and Thomas Hughes. So glad you guys are both here with us today. I love to see everybody tuning in the chat. We've got lots of people joining us already and a lot of great names coming in. Again, if you're just joining us for your first MarketBeat Monday, this is a live show. We are going to do a live look at different stock tickers that come up in the chat. If you really want one of your stocks covered, do a super chat. That's the fastest way to make sure we cover your stock. But Chris and Thomas will have a cold look at these stocks and give their quick analysis, just looking at some of our MarketBeat stats to kind of dive into these names. But before we get to your names, the stocks you want to talk about in the chat, let's just start with what's an overview of what's happening in the market. We want to talk about the biggest market movers today and some catalysts that might be coming in the market this week. So guys, let's talk about a lot of green today, some red for sure in certain areas, but let's just talk about what's happening in the market.
All right, we moved up at the open. It was a pretty decent day. I think the market is hopeful and optimistic. We're waiting for some data to come out this week that could, reinforce the bull case. So right now it's looking all right.
Yeah, I think it's supporting the sector rotation narrative that's been going on since about December. Although some of the consumer staple stocks got hit today, that's been a strong sector as we were talking before the show started. But certainly, what you're seeing in the market today is supportive that last week got a little bit oversold and buyers are jumping back in.
Yeah, I'm pulling up right now the consumer staples that we talked about earlier, the XLP. That one has been just moving up like crazy. It had the slightest little pullback today. But what could be going on? What does that kind of indicate to see this fund specifically going up so much right now?
I think it kind of confirms the sector rotation for money to be flowing back into consumer product companies like this. It just shows the market, confident in the fact that consumers will be spending, that these companies will be able to sustain growth and cash flow margins and capital returns. The headwinds that they've been facing over the last few years will be dissipating, I think, and we're seeing this being priced into the market.
Yeah, the interesting thing I think with this whole idea with the sector rotation, especially in an area like staples, I think is going to come down to how much of what you're seeing right now is part of a flight to safety and the relative safety of these companies that pay reliable dividends and such like that, and people are getting away from perhaps some tech stocks that they feel are overvalued. I think that's a story that will have to play out over the next couple of months to see if that story really has legs. But certainly right now in this moment, there does seem to be a little bit of that. People are saying, okay, I don't want to be in gold or I don't want to be in, in silver, but maybe I want to be in some safer stocks that like.
I don't know if I would say flight to safety so much as flight to quality, where cash flow, growth, and capital returns are pretty important.
I can buy that.
But, safety is certainly is a good way to describe it, though, too, I think.
I could buy that. Yeah, I could agree with that.
Well, I know we are waiting on some data that is going to be coming out this week that'll help tell us some more about that. I do see we have our first super chat of the show. Thank you for that. We'll get to that one in just a second. But let's talk about the data that's going to be coming out this week and whether either of you expected to move anything in the market.
Yeah, we got the jobs report for the delayed jobs report for January is coming out on Wednesday. And that could be a market mover if it's a number that surprises in either direction in a big way. I think that right now we're kind of in that pattern with jobs where it's going to take a few months for things to really even out, to really start establishing where the trend is. Because I think right now we're in one of those situations where you can look at the data and you can look at it through the glass of half empty or half full, and you're going to draw your conclusions from there. But I think it's going to take us a few months before we really figure out where the trend is. And then we've got CPI coming out on Friday, so that will be another key point for investors to see. Is that trend in inflation? Is it starting to go higher? Is it staying sort of subdued? I don't think we're going to see the number anywhere close to 2.5. I think it's still going to be around that 2.7, 2.8 level. But are we staying there, or are we are we showing signs that if it's staying there, then that might be good for the market?
All right, very good. Well, let's get on to the stocks. That's what everyone's here for. We are going to start out with our super chat. We have at J-Man asking for NKLR. So, Chris, I'll have you look at NKLR. That stock ticker. Again, thanks for that super chat. Let's, Thomas, while he's looking that up so we can give a little bit of analysis on that, let's talk about HIMS. We had a couple people early on ask about HIMS, and I know there was an update in that stock of what happened to kind of move that stock today.
Well, right. They faced legal action because of their GLP-1 knockoffs, and so they've halted the sales of these drugs. Not really unexpected. This has been a kind of a thing hanging over this company's head for quite a long time and has capped the market all throughout 2025. Today's price action certainly reflects the loss of the revenue, but I would also say that it also kind of reflects some capitulation. There was a big gap down at the open. The market was certainly expecting, this kind of thing to happen. But after the open, buyers stepped in. So the market moved up from the opening. We've got a green candle here at the close of the day. So could be a bottom in the market. I think other than GLP-1, the business has been doing all right. They've been growing. They've been establishing like new markets and new services, becoming more entrenched as a telehealth provider. So the rebound could be real. It could be pretty vigorous. But as we were saying with the labor data, it could take a little while for the market to regain its confidence.
One thing that's a little off on HIMS right now is that consensus price target, the analyst price target data on this. Right now it's trading well below the consensus price target. It's showing over 100% potential upside. But if you look at those new latest targets, you've got lower targets on the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
The last 5 have been lowering those price targets, really kind of changing the outlook for this stock. One of those moved their price target from 30 down to 1650. So that's a really big change. I think the question is, and again, there's another one that moved their price target from 85 to 60. I think people are really still trying to figure out what's the value for this stock. Is now a buying opportunity? Could it be crashing even further? Could it still continue to grow like some analysts think?
Well, I think that there is still growth with this company, but as I was saying, it's going to take the market a little bit of time to regain its confidence. As you were alluding to with the price targets, I think one of the fresh ones is a new low, which is 1650, and that implies there's some downside to go. The revision trend certainly leads to below consensus, so that's definitely pressuring the market. What we're going to want to look for the next few weeks and few months is to see how price action develops at these new lows. Does the market move and set another new low? Does it move sideways? Do we get some rebounding action going on? And what do the results look like? Because as I was saying before, I think the company is still doing decently, even aside from the GLP-1 drugs. That was just one thing that was driving the market, but there are other drivers as well. So when we get good reports, good news along those avenues, it will help the market regain that traction.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out with this one too, short interest right now, 38% of the float. So pretty high short interest on HIMS right now.
Right. So something else to watch too would be short covering. Today's price action with that gap lower and then the market then moving higher. That might have been a signal that we hit a bottom where short sellers believe that the market's not going to fall that much farther, and they may have begun to cover. Looking at the indicators, the MACD shows a pretty hot divergence. That shows the market is weakening and is certainly setting up for a rebound at some time in the not too distant future.
Well, that's a good look at HIMS. Again, a few people asked about that one, so I'm glad we covered it right away. Let's get Chris over to our super chat question and NKLR. What is this company?
Well, I am just learning about this company for the first time. The company, if I got the ticker symbol right, NKLR, it's Terra Innovatum Global. So they develop micro modular nuclear reactors. I'm not sure if maybe Thomas has heard of them because I hadn't heard of them before then. So this is, obviously this is a very interesting space right now. It appears that they have some very interesting proprietary technology that they're working on in the design of it, and their specific product is called the Solo Micro Modular Reactor, So again, they're trying to get into that space of the world needs nuclear energy, and they're trying to do something that can be highly modular and mass produced in a factory. So good story. Looking at the chart, this has been a company that's only been publicly trading since late last year, from what I've seen. October of last year was when they went public. So they kind of spiked up, and now they're lower. I can see why somebody's interested in it. It's got a consensus price target of $25, which is like 438% upside.
Right.
So, but it's not covered by very many analysts. I can see that. So.
Yeah, that's a really interesting upside. It's also interesting that that price target came at the same time that Weiss Ratings initiated coverage and said it was a sell. So interesting to see that very small coverage on it.
Yeah.
Do you think...
I would take a little bit of, and I hate to bang on them a lot, but I've noticed that Weiss Ratings has been very bearish over the past quarter or so, and they've been wrong in a lot of cases. So you got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. Again, not very much coverage out. That's why I was wondering if Thomas had seen it all, because I know, like I said, it's an interesting company. Bullish price target by Wainwright that came out at the end of the year, but haven't heard anything since.
Yeah. It's interesting. It reminds me of a nanonuclear, which is another one of these small modular reactors. So smaller than a small modular reactor, like super compact, super portable, super easy to deploy, very site specific, location specific kind of applications, not a grid supporting kind of application, but definitely good for, smaller data centers, smaller industries. So I think nanonuclear was targeting things like helping the military set up bases, having their bases centered on these small portable reactors. So definitely a good story. The real question is how far along they are with their technology and the regulatory process. There is a favorable environment right now for the company, for the business. So if their technology is good and they're advancing their project, then I mean the outlook in the future is probably going to be pretty decent.
It looks like, I can't see it on their website, but it looks like their earnings should be coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Their last one was on November 17th, so that would put it maybe end of this week, early next week would be when they might be having their earnings. That would be something certainly that I would be that's certainly, if you have an appetite for a stock that's a penny stock now, but might not be for very much longer, this is one that you might want to be paying attention to.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to say that aside from, the hurdle for these stocks is regulation.
Yeah.
Once they get approved, I want to look at Bloom Energy. They're doing fuel cells. They're hydrocarbons, but they're chemically unlocking the energy. They're not burning it. Right. And these little fuel cells are perfect for like industries and for data centers, and the results are off the chain. Backlog is up triple digits because of demand for data centers and co-located energy supplies for other industries. And I would see that nanonuclear and this company would also be in that same ballpark once their technology has been approved and they're able to make sales. I would expect their sales to really just right through the roof.
Interesting. Thank you for bringing that one to our attention. That was a great first super chat stock. We've got another super chat here to look into. I'll have both of you look at it real quick. SABR. This is a newer name. I don't think I can. Don't know it right off the top of my head.
SABR. It sounds familiar.
All right, this is a penny stock. It's a smaller one. It looks like this is a leading travel technology company with software, data, mobile, and distribution solutions for global travel. Software is the interesting part of it. It's trading well towards the lowest of its 52-week range. So, but the consensus price target does show some upside on this one.
Yeah.
Giving the guys some time to look at it. I'm just going to read through some of the other things we're seeing. Again, this stock is down quite a bit, down 90% in the last 5 years, down 67% in the last year. So definitely on a downtrend.
This is like a B2B software company for travel. So what it's helping businesses arrange travel, but it's also travel solution, like travel platforms for other kinds of businesses. Reservation systems, right? it seems, like a decent idea, but it also seems like there's plenty of competition for them. I don't see a lot of recent news.
That's a good point, Thomas, for sure. I'm looking at that too, not seeing a lot of any kind of action.
Right.
The short interest is
Yeah.
almost nothing. I do think one
It's
thing
been
that's
into
interesting,
right.
there's a lot of institutional ownership, almost 90% institutional
Right.
ownership on this one.
It's been in decline, and it's expected to decline. Let's check over here. Yeah, this is one of those ones where it's like, I don't see a real reason to get interested in it, but then things like the institutional holdings make you wonder what you're missing.
It's true.
89%.
Yeah,
Is
it
pretty
looks
hot.
like they're really. Go
They've
ahead.
been buying. Analysts, the analyst sentiment trends are kind of wacky.
Yeah.
So we've got 5.7 rated reduce. The price targets have been rising, and they're forecasting 200% upside at consensus. 1, 2. We've only got one target this year. That's from Zacks. But Zacks is kind of like Weiss. These aren't really like investor ratings where like they're telling you this is a buy or a sell for as a long-term investment. This is more of a trading rating. These are like short-term, because Weiss is also here with a sell. And I'm glad that Chris brought up Weiss ratings. I've seen them all over the place lately. They weren't around forever. I mean, they're not a new company, but they haven't been around that much. But then all of a sudden they're on every page, and it's like it sells on everything. So it makes me, question it. I kind of overlook it now because I see it everywhere I go. Right. There's not a lot of activity on SABR. I mean, the institutions own it. That's a good sign. But other than that, I don't see a lot of catalysts in it. Not a lot of reasons to own it otherwise. It is supposed to return to growth, but the forecasts are kind of sketchy. It looks spotty and sporadic. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
All right, I think that's a good look at that one. Thank you for bringing that one up. Again, it's fun to see MarketBeat Mondays. We see a lot of penny stocks like this. We get a lot of these kind of one-off companies that you wouldn't hear about otherwise. So thank you for bringing that one. Let's get back to the list. We have a lot of different people asking about different stocks right now. Thomas, I'm going to have you look at MP, and then Chris, I think we could start out. Michael had said early on, even before the show started, talking about PAGS and TIGR. I think they were similar companies, if that was right, Chris. I'm going to pull up both of their charts. So, Thomas, I have you looking at any updates on MP, and then let's look at PAGS. Do you remember those ones, Chris?
Yeah, those were the fintech ones we were.
The fintech companies, that's right. They're both fintechs. Michael says that they are had an upgrade by Citi that would be almost a double for these companies. Let's take a look at that. I've got PAGS pulled up right now.
Yeah, looking at that. Let's see. See, it got. I don't see anything recently there with.
Yeah, I'm looking at just looking at the chart in general while you look up the company a little bit, Chris. Sure. It looks like we've got up 53% for the year, but a little bit of volatility here. We've gone up and down quite a bit, like we've seen.
What are you looking at right now, Bridget? I'm sorry.
PAGS, PAGS.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the right one.
Yep. And as far as consensus goes in price targets, there's nothing major there. I'm curious. Yeah. I don't see that 1750 upgrade that he's talking about. But interesting to talk about fintechs. We haven't talked about those in a while. I know we always get questions about SoFi and several other of those fintech companies. I think we talked about PayPal recently on the show too. That's come up. So anything happening in this space to talk about?
I think this is going to continue to be a very fascinating space because I think when you start seeing the whole move towards stable coins and other things, this is where the industry is moving. Is going to be away from the traditional banking system and onto things like the blockchain and fintech products. And that's already being shown that more and more consumers, and not just the millennials and Gen Z consumers, are starting to really adopt this technology. This is what they want. And here we're talking about two companies in very different regions. One's Brazil, one's China. So I'm, like I said, first look for me at either one of these stocks. I'm trying to get my mind around them a little bit.
Totally understand.
It could be a good year for these smaller fintechs, especially the ones that are operating in the emerging markets. Emerging markets are expected to lead again. Latin America is supposed to be strong. Southeast Asia is supposed to be strong. India is supposed to be real strong.
And that's where I was thinking when I was looking at the Brazil one, which then when I look at UP, which is TIGR, that's the one that's the China-based fintech.
Right. So that one, and I could be mistaken, but what I think I was reading is that it's a trading platform for Chinese expatriates. Because I think it said it was Chinese that were living in New Zealand and then maybe the Caymans and some other places. So it sounds like an incredibly niche business.
Right, but that would be interesting, though, right? Because if the Chinese expatriates were trading in another country, then they probably have access to other stocks, right?
Right. I mean,
other than just the China stocks.
But at face value, the stock seems to have a fairly low valuation, and I think it's making profits now. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's like it's there and it's making money, but where's it going, and how much of an investment is it actually going to be?
Yeah, you do like to see the revenue going up and the earnings are going up too, so that's nice. I mean,
or at least have some some steady cash flow and buy back shares, pay a dividend or something.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing those up again. Two interesting names. I like what you were talking about, Thomas, with kind of emerging markets going into different countries too, as being an interesting way to look at some of these names. So two great names. I saw the 1750 price target was on the TIGR ticker. So thanks for bringing those up, Michael. All right, we've got a couple other names to cover here. Several people, Chris, this one's going to be for you, asking about Microsoft and whether now is a time to buy at that level. Hello from London. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll get to that question after MP. Let's get to that, Thomas. What did you find with MP?
All right. So I'm not seeing anything real new or strong stream. But what I do see in a week or 10 days since the last update, but it looks like analyst coverage is strengthening. We still have initiations coming on, upgrades, price target increases. So right now we got a pretty strong moderate buy. Consensus is pointing to 25% upside. That seems pretty firm. And looking on the chart, it seems like the market is kind of stabilized. We hit a high middle of last year and pulled back, since rebounded. We set a multi-month high first part of this year, pulled back again, but we're still showing support at this really strong level. Indicators look good. We're set up for another upswing. Could happen with the next earnings report. I think it's due out not too long. There we go. Yeah, end of this month. Not expecting a whole lot out of it necessarily, but certainly some updates on progress and anything that will help, bolster the outlook, will help get this market, in gear and moving higher again.
All right, very good. All right, let's get into Microsoft. And then, Thomas, I'm going to have you look up another super chat we had today was Tesla, wanting to know what's happening with the stock and whether it's a buy right now. So you look up Tesla. And Chris, let's get to Microsoft. What are your thoughts on whether it's a buy right now? That's the biggest question we're getting today.
Yeah, so my short answer is I think it's definitely a buy if you're a long-term, if you have a long-term focus in the stock, it's definitely a buy. It looks like it got down around $400 per share, maybe a little bit under, and that was a price that it hadn't been at since May of last year. Clearly the stock went into oversold range from a technical standpoint. So I think that's a very viable point. Again, if you're a long-term investor, if you're a trader, which I wouldn't be trading Microsoft stock, but if you're trading it, it's a little bit different question as far as where you want to look at it. Microsoft's an interesting case right now because they're sort of playing both sides of the AI debate. On the one hand, you can look at them as being a very safe stock because they cover so many layers of the AI stack. And then on the other hand, there's people that are concerned about them because of the relationship that they have with OpenAI and what does that mean? And they are a software company, which again, at the time when there's some concern about them getting in, but as far as where the stock is right now, I think it's a very viable point for Microsoft. It's down over 14% year to date. It's down 13% just in the last month. I thought it was oversold about a week ago. I still think it's probably a little bit oversold. The PE right now is only 25 times, and even the forward PE is only 30. So you're getting a really good stock, and you're getting it at a much more attractive price than it probably was even earlier in the year. And even earlier in the year, I didn't think it was that overvalued. So I think right now, certainly, I think this is a very viable point for Microsoft.
I think one thing I want to bring up with Microsoft is earnings were great. They reported earnings; they were so good, but we saw the decline happening because of all that spending, right?
Yeah, right. And that's actually, thank you for bringing that up, Reggie, because that's a better way to tee up what I was trying to say. Is there's a lot of things to like about Microsoft in terms of where they are in the layers of the AI stack, but it's going to cost money to build that, and they're committing 160 billion. Now, the one thing I would say in terms of Microsoft is Microsoft is paying for that out of money that they have on hand. They're not borrowing money to do it. It's 200 billion that they were doing, but some of that Amazon's going to have to borrow to do it. You saw Oracle getting punished because they're going to be borrowing to do the AI infrastructure. Microsoft doesn't have to do that. Now, is that going to put pressure on earnings in the short term? Probably. But again, where the stock was almost under $400, it's a buy right now.
Very good. All right, I'm just trying to see what we're going to go to Tesla next. I've got to see, and I've got another super chat that came in. I've got to see which one that is. But let's talk about Tesla. What's going on there?
Right. So on the charts, it looks like Tesla might be a buy right now. It's had retreat down to the 30-day moving, the 150-day moving average, showing some support. Today it has advanced. It could move up in the near term. But I would say, like in the mid to long term, that Tesla might be setting up for a deeper decline. So in the last year, we rocketed higher, moved up to new highs, hit a top. Now we're retreating. The market looks like it's topping out at what would be the top of a trading range at the 2024 highs. And that's because this business is in transition. The car business is crap right now. The deliveries and production are falling. It's expected to grow this year, or this coming up quarter, but that's because of the comparison to last year, which was really horrible because of all that Musk-Trump fiasco going on. Later on this year, they're going to return back to contraction because the comps will get tougher. We're really waiting for this company to come out with its next thing, which is probably going to be the robo-taxi, but that's still like a really slow rolling, train that's not expected to make any, big impact soon. So right now, I think, near term, there could be some upside. I think midterm, the stock is moving kind of sideways, but longer term, I would not be surprised to see it pull down to the 300 level or deeper, because the analyst updates since the last report were all bearish, all price target reductions. Let me confirm what I'm about to say, but I think they're all leading to 215. That one's in 300, but yeah, they're all leading to pretty low price points. We're looking at double-digit declines for this stock based on the analyst trends right now.
All right, a good look at Tesla. Thank you again for that super chat for that one. We've covered a lot of the Mag 7, so I want to get out of that a little bit and go into some other smaller cap areas. Somebody's been asking about CRSP. I know we've covered that one before, but we'll get onto that one. And then let's talk about Grab. Thanks for being here, Marcy. We want to talk about Grab. I know that's a stock you've enjoyed before, Thomas. So I'll have you talk about Grab. And then let's see what's happening with CRISPR. I think, Chris, you've talked about CRISPR before, too.
Yeah, this is the gene editing company. So CRISPR is the, It's the platform that is probably the most well known as far as gene editing goes. They announce earnings. I know it's this week. I'm trying to remember when.
It says February 10th, so tomorrow.
It's actually tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, it's actually tomorrow. They announce earnings. Analysts are very bullish on this. I'm looking at the FDA events right now to see if there's a catalyst that investors are expecting.
Yeah, some of these price targets on this one, again, all over the place. We've got some as low as just 50, but then there's others as high as 120. A recent one, just last November, was a price target of moving their price target from $13 to $9. So truly, price targets all over the place.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is just really coming into. I don't think you don't have to. You don't have to use much imagination to look at what a bull case could potentially be for a gene editing company. But I think, again, the question I think that a lot of people have is how far away are we really? And then also I think it's going to get down to what is the cost of the therapy and how accessible is it going to be for people? So far it seems like CRISPR's been moving stuff through their pipeline fairly effectively, but there's just a lot that we don't know about the company and the technology yet. Again, this is a company, people have to realize it's been, this company still makes very, very little money. In the last quarter, it reported it was under $1 million in terms of total, or 0.89 million in terms of revenue. It's not profitable yet, which again doesn't mean the company's not going to get there, and it doesn't mean it's a bad investment. It just means it still fits in that speculative category. I've been kind of keeping one eye on CRISPR for a long time now, just because I think, again, it doesn't take much imagination to believe in the technology and what it can possibly mean, but we're not there yet.
Now, we're not there yet is the question. I think we'll find out more tomorrow when those earnings come. For speculative stocks like this, is there ever any benefit to getting into a stock just before that earnings report comes out? Or is there just expected volatility after earnings in a pre-revenue company like this?
I think with a pre-revenue company like this, unless you were getting a clear oversold signal on the stock and you expected them to beat earnings, I don't think there's any reason why you need to be diving into this. Even if it gets a pop after earnings, it's not going to be running away from you. You've got time with this. Analysts, as you pointed out, Bridget, the analysts have a 12-month price target of $67.85 on this. That's 36% upside. So you can wait on this. You could wait on it to see what the earnings results are and then decide if you want to get involved. But I would want to wait to hear what they had to say at earnings, because again, it's just they're making very, very little revenue. They're not profitable. I don't see much of that changing in the earnings tomorrow, but there's nothing I see on the FDA events that would tell me that that's going to be changing anytime soon.
Okay, we just had another super chat in the same area, so I'm going to try and get to them really quick. We want to look at they're all in the same sector, so they're kind of competitors to CRISPR. And I think these are interesting. I know you're kind of our biotech person, Chris, a lot. So we're looking at SGMO. This is Sangamo Therapeutics. This is tiny. This is a 40-cent stock right now. And then I'm going to pull that one up. So very, very small company that's been down quite a bit, had some volatility. And the other one is EDIT, Adidas Medicine, I believe. And this one is, again, very small, a $1.81 company. Pulling up that chart. Also lots of volatility in this one, too, recently. Are they in the same field as CRISPR? I don't know if you've covered either of them before.
I've covered both. I haven't covered Sangamo in a while. Editas, I've written about more recently. Yes, they are both in the gene editing area. So they're looks like the last time Editas had an event was back in October. Well, no, that was December of 24. So again, it looks like they've got some medicines in the pipeline. None are that far down the road. So I know with Editas, I don't know with Sangamo, but Editas uses CRISPR technology in terms of, in terms of their pipeline. So that's, but again, this is a company that's quite a ways away from having something be commercially available. And then even when it does become commercially available, there's going to be the question of pricing and analysts are bullish on it. They, and it is covered by 6 analysts, so that's not bad. It's got a $5 price target. That's Sangamo. Little bit of a different story. That thing's been beaten down in the last year. Trying to look at the FDA.
Sangamo still has a consensus price target. That's wild. I mean, it's showing almost
Right.
1,000% upside. If you pay attention to what the price targets say in biotech, I think that's sometimes a little wild.
Sangamo just announced results on February 3rd from phase 1/2 study with one of its candidates. So again, phase 1/2, it just means it's early in the process. From what I see, they've got like 2 candidates out there. So again, this stock's going to take a while. It's not going to run away from anybody. It's going to take a while before they have something in market.
What's your take on what's your take on those analyst forecasts? It's too high to ignore that there's it's showing almost 1,000% upside on this little penny stock. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on it is penny stock. I mean,
Right.
So it's always important when you look at penny stocks to put it in context and say, yeah, sure. I mean, you could have a very positive earnings report or something that gets investors excited. I'm sure that with a lot of these stocks, for example, with Sangamo, I'm trying to look right now. I mean, short interest isn't that high, but it's still high enough where, yeah, if you get the traders in the right frame of mind, you could easily see the stock squeeze up to that high. And you just have to be careful because again, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be looking to get in. We've talked about this before. Now Sangamo has about 56% institutional ownership, so that's not that low. But again, anytime you get these stocks that are being driven a lot by retail, they can have sharp price movements.
All right, very good. Well, let's get on to Grab. I also want to talk about Coinbase, and we did have we've had several people ask about Coin, so we can cover that. And then we had another super chat. Thank you again. Love to see all these today. AEVA. So we'll look at AEVA and then Coin. Let's get on to Grab because I know I mentioned we'd talk about that, and I do want to get to it. So anything new with Grab today, Thomas?
Well, so Grab has been under pressure recently because of concerns about profitability. Those were exacerbated by potential new legislation in Indonesia, which is one of its largest markets, where they would cap commissions on the ride sharing, which could have a mid-single digit to low double-digit impact on EBITDA. But that hasn't been passed yet, so it's still just a fear. So right now, what I see happening is this market kind of setting up for a rebound. We have fears leading to the sell-off. But they're expected to report results this week, and so far there hasn't been time for these fears to be realized. So what I'm looking for is the revenue growth to continue to accelerate. Right now, the forecast is for 23%. That's a slight acceleration from the previous quarter, and the bar is set very low because of the revision trends. Analysts have been lowering their forecast for revenue and for earnings, so the chance for outperformance is significant. So not only do we have a setup for outperformance here, but also for significant outperformance, we could get a pretty solid rebound, get the stock back up to the $6 level pretty quickly, I think. In that scenario, it's just a matter of what they say about earnings and the long-term outlook. And then as far as even higher prices, it depends on this Indonesian legislation, but that'll still be months or several quarters down the road if it is even passed at all. But then aside from that, Grab is in this really hot, really large expanding growth market in Southeast Asia. So even with this Indonesian ruling, the outlook for growth and for profitability is still pretty solid. So at these levels, the stock is presenting a value, and I think it would be a buy.
Very good analysis on Grab. We like the quick looks. That's what we're trying to do on MarketBeat Mondays, is a quick little look at some of these stocks. So
well, right. So sorry, but even with all these fears, analysts are still like lifting targets and forecasting like a 50%, 23% upside. Institutions are buying, so it's being accumulated. There's just some fears impacting the near-term price action.
All right, very good. Well, we're going to look at coin here in a second after we do I'm sorry, I'm got to get to the right one. After we do AVA, I believe.
AEVA, you said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then it looks like we have a few people asking for Tempest AI, so we'll get to that one here too in a minute. Let's start with AEVA. AEVA, goodness gracious. What's going on with this stock?
I see analysts are very bullish on it. I'm not necessarily seeing when their next earnings report is. This is a company that's in the lidar space. Okay, they're not necessarily. So, let's see. I'm just trying to look at here. So they most lidar systems measure distance and reflectivity, and IREN has a frequency, what they call their frequency modulated continuous wave lidar, and it measures distance, velocity, and reflectively simultaneously, in a single chip. The benefit is that it takes away the guesswork from frame to frame. It's a big deal for autonomous driving, and that's why I think it would be. That's why I think it's generating interest right now, because that seems to be the space in the technology end of automotive that's doing very well, I guess, is the autonomous space. So trying to look and see.
Now, I don't remember who this was with, but I do think that this one came up on a list that we were doing a while ago. Thomas, that wasn't with you, was it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it didn't. It wasn't me.
Yeah, interesting.
It's been down a lot in the last month, and
yep.
I'm just trying to. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't say when their next earnings should be close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not seeing any earnings data for this one.
Maybe next month.
Yeah. Well, in the sake of time, I want to keep moving on to the next one, because we've got lots of different names still coming in. So let's just move on. We're going to do coin right now with Thomas, and then Tempest AI will be next. We had a new person on today who said it's their first time. There's a lot of comments in the chat today. I love to see it from everybody. Bear with me. I'm trying to read as many as I can while I'm still going through, but I did see that Ray said it is first time asking, and he wants to hear about GEV. Ray, thanks for being here. Thanks for asking. Let's look at GEV too. So I've got those ones on deck. Let's do coin next, Tempest AI, and then GEV.
All right. Right. Well, Coinbase is being deeply impacted by Bitcoin prices. Bitcoin has imploded. Looking at the Bitcoin chart, it's down like 50%. That's insane to me. I think that there's been a lot of fear in the cryptocurrency market in general. Just people wondering, what is it even for? I mean, Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies have been developing over the last few years. There's not really been a lot of like super compelling use cases where it's like, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing with cryptocurrency. So you see that in the price action, and that's being reflected in Coinbase. Right now, it looks like coin could be at its bottom. Last week, it touched support at low set in 2024 and 2025. This week, we're bouncing. So this could be the bottom. If so, the market could rebound pretty strongly. But I think that would also be tied to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin continues to flounder, then I would expect to see all the stocks tied to it continue to flounder as well, including Coinbase. Because ultimately, if Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies are floundering. It's going to scare traders away, and Coinbase needs traders to be buying and selling Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies to make their money.
Right. I'm looking really quick at the earnings for Coinbase, and I show, they had a beat in October. Their earnings come out reporting this week. What kind of earnings do you expect? Not just for Coinbase, but let's talk about any of these crypto stocks, MicroStrategy, other ones too. Do you expect to see the drop in Bitcoin reflected in their earnings?
Well, yeah, I do, because right now the analyst trends are pretty bearish. Almost 100% of them have reduced their targets. They're looking for a sequential decline and a year-over-year decline in revenue and in earnings. They're leading to the low end of the range. Probably get some outperformance, but the question now is if outperformance is going to be enough to really get the market invigorated, and I don't know that it will be.
All right, very good. Well, you look up GEV for me. That's the next one. Tempest AI. Let's see what's going on with that one. It has been a little while since we've covered that.
Yeah. So this is a company that they, I guess to put it, maybe oversimplifying it, they're a healthcare data infrastructure company, and they, with using an AI platform, as you would expect. So you're seeing that the world is moving towards personalized medicine, and that's where Tempest AI comes in, because they're using AI to help clinics and doctors, and to sort of match patients with the right therapy for them. And primarily right now, that's in the field of oncology, which obviously is very important for a lot of reasons, but it expands beyond that. They're expanding into other fields as well. It's why the revenue has soared about 84% through the first 9 months of last year. So the shares have been knocked down quite a bit since October of last year, but it's looking like it looks like they hit a base around $50 a share. So I mean, certainly this is a stock that again, I don't think you need to have a lot of imagination to imagine what the bull case is for the company and what they could do. And I think they report earnings. I think it's next week, towards the end of next week. But this is one to watch. I know for those that put stock in something like this, I know Kathy Wood just bought this stock too. So
right,
she could be buying the dip on this stock. Their revenue's going up very strongly year over year. They're not profitable yet, but it looks like they're heading in that direction. So this is certainly one that.
Was Tempest AI one of Pelosi's picks too? I can't. I might.
I think it was.
I think it was too.
I want to say that to me on this chart, this pullback, it's a counter trend move. It's absolutely a buying opportunity, because as Chris was saying, the last results were beat and raise, significant acceleration, forecasting more acceleration. The analyst trends since then have been bullish, with price targets and initiations and upgrades. They're looking for a 50% upside at the consensus, and the institutions are accumulating. So prices coming down, go yay, and then go buy some stock and then ride the upswing.
I am looking. I don't see anything on Nancy's timeline here.
I thought I remembered it as one of her recent ones, but I might be wrong. We got to move on. We've got a couple other. We only have a few minutes left. Also, Thomas, I'm so sad I didn't have you on camera for the yay. I didn't even have. No, we got to see it.
I'll do it again.
Maybe on the next one. Let's get to it. Okay, so we have a couple people. UNH. Somebody was asking about that for a while. So Joe, I'll get to the UNH. Chris, why don't you look up that one? You were looking at GEV. Is that right, Thomas?
Is that GEB?
GEV.
GEV.
Vernova.
Like as in.
Yeah, right, GE Vernova. Yes.
Okay, because I was looking at a stock and I'm like, this is a German listed company that I can't even pull up the information. So GE Vernova, right? This is the electrical portion. This is all the non-defense and non-aerospace part of GE, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
the stock looks good. It's moving up. It's got support. Volume looks good. Stochastic and MACD show room to go. Let's see here. Earnings. Oh yeah, right. The last result was, all the results have been pretty strong since the spin. Looks good. Dividend looks pretty healthy. The yield is low, but I don't know for sure, but they're probably buying back shares. I've covered the other half of GE more than this one. See what the analysts are saying. That's not the right stock either. GE, there it is.
It looks like it's trading just above or almost right at that consensus price target.
Right.
But there's some high end estimates are quite high.
Right. So let's look at the trend since the last result. There was quite a few upgrades, boosted targets. They're leading to the high end of the range, which is almost $1,100. So right now the stock is trading in alignment with consensus, but the consensus is up 100%, more than 100% in the last year, $100 in the last month. So certainly it's providing support for the market. It looks to me like this uptrend is intact and it's still going to be moving higher.
Great. Good look at that one. We've got one more super chat that just came in. Mobix Labs. Thomas, you can look that up. What do you have for us on UnitedHealth?
Yeah. So stock's been down. It's down about 16% this year. It's down about 47% in the last 12 months. I think probably people are wondering if this is the time to get in and buy this rather large dip that happened, and if we're at a bottom for it. My answer is I'm not necessarily that optimistic about it. I mean, this is a company that was kind of a pretty high growth stock that has. Right now, there's a real big question about one of its strongest growth catalysts, and that was the growth of Medicare Advantage. The Trump administration is making a lot of noises about trying to limit how much that can grow every year. The company is lowering their growth estimates. It's a tricky one right now because if they lose that growth component, then the stock becomes a lot less attractive because it basically then just becomes a kind of a buy and hold dividend stock at that point. And I'm just not sure what the growth levers are right now.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, I'm going to have you look up IREN really quick. We had somebody asking about MU from Poland, and I wish we could get to it on this show, but I want to tell you we did just talk about MU on a video that came out on Sunday. So go and watch that one if you've missed it yet. We talked. Jeffrey had a little thoughts on MU. Let's look at the super chat that you are looking at right now. This is the first time I've heard of this one. Have you seen it before, Thomas?
I haven't, and they're a semiconductor stock. They're not in production. I don't think they have any revenue. I think the problem right now is they just had a massive capital raise, shareholder dilution. There's some negative sentiment. There's concern about cash burn. They're going to be facing some listing compliance issues pretty soon because now they're trading under $1. The price action shows pretty hardcore resistance up above the 25-cent level. So it looks to me like this market is not going anywhere right now. I would expect to see it move lower. This to me is a candidate for a reverse stock split. Once that enters the picture, you can just say bye-bye to my interest because my experience with those stocks is they just suck all the value that they can out of the market. Stock prices go down to zero and investors are just left in the lurch.
All right, that's a quick look, but I think it's a good look at a teeny tiny company. So thanks again for bringing that one up. Really quick, just one other follow-up question on Mobix Labs. Any thought on the potential for that topic, what they do? I mean, there's been a lot of going on in that area, but is there any hope just on a catalyst in that industry?
Let's see. Okay. So it could be important because it's US based. It is focusing on some high performance connectivity solutions, which are critical for defense and aerospace, 5G infrastructure, which all play into AI and the advancing technology. However, again, this is a pre-revenue company, have some clear hurdles. So I would want to see some positive developments before really getting too interested in this one. I mean, at 25 cents a share, you can certainly get exposure to this company with plenty of exposure at a very low cost. So if you think that there's a future here, you can get exposure and not worry about price action right now, because at a quarter, if the stock does do what it could possibly do, we're talking like thousands of percent upside potential. It just depends on how execution unfolds over the next few quarters.
Great. All right. And then, Chris, you were looking at the last one we have for today. What were you looking at?
You gave me IREN.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been a wild week if you have that stock. So the long story short here is they had a very ugly earnings report, missed on both the top and the bottom line. This is a hyperscaler. They're in that AI infrastructure build out sector with the data centers, and they're also that company that was the Bitcoin miner that's doing the pivot towards building out these AIs, and so their earnings were whacked by the fact that the Bitcoin price is down, and therefore their price is down. Key things to note here is that they've just secured a $3.6 billion loan that's going to allow them to buy the processors and GPUs that they need to have without diluting shareholder value. So that's important. I think it's why the stock has snapped back quite a bit from when it dipped. And also the company is only a few months away from having a 1 gigawatt facility ready to go. It's like a 1.6 gigawatt facility ready to go. So, and that means they're going to be able to take some of that hardware that they're buying and deploy it and start getting ready to use it. So the optimist would say future earnings are going to be much better than this one was. But they've still got that Bitcoin overhang that could provide some volatility in the stock, but it's one to watch.
One to watch for sure. I also did a recent video.
Jeffrey wrote a really good article about that, Bridget, that I'll just tell the people they could look at there.
Yes, Jeffrey wrote an article on it. I did a video on it last week. It made one of my 10 stocks in 10 minutes videos last week, talking about all of the former Bitcoin miners that could make that pivot into AI data centers like IREN and Applied Digital are doing. So check out that video too on the channel if you haven't before. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. I feel like we barely touched the surface of all of the comments that came in today. So many people in the chat. Thank you all for being here today. Again, this is all about stock ideas on MarketBeat Mondays. We hope that you got some ideas today, some different stocks and tickers maybe you haven't heard of before. I hope that you'll stick to our channel Tuesdays through Sundays. We have more in-depth pre-recorded videos that we do a lot more research on. It's a very different format. So MarketBeat Mondays are a one-off for us, and we are so glad for all of you who joined us from all over the world today. Love to have you with us on MarketBeat Mondays. Thanks again for joining us. As always, happy investing, everyone.